everybody, and welcome to Season 8, Episode 2 of the Alpha Podcast. My name is Slowwolf. I am your grateful host, and it's good to be back. It is good to be back. Joining me today is nobody. It's just me today, going through the whole show, and honestly, that's not such a big thing compared to what you guys might be expecting. Before we get into things, just wanted to go ahead and mention that if you're watching this live, you can also watch previous VODs of not only just the Alpha Podcast or Alpha Pod, you can also go to our YouTube channel to watch VODs, including different games and other previous seasons of the Alpha League as they've happened. But you can also go to our Twitch channel here, you follow, and get notifications of when these things go live, and you can check out our Discord as well. Pants, you're the servitor. If you could go ahead and link the Discord in the chat, that'd be sick. But, yeah, as long as you get in on this, that's a good time. So yeah, Alpha Pod. We need to talk about this a little bit, and we also need to talk about what exactly is going on. Today's docket consists mostly of, effectively, just stats. We're talking today about stats. We're talking today about, what's going on in terms of our shows, what's going on in terms of different lists, and what happened last week. So let's go ahead and start off with that. So last week, normally every Sunday we do a podcast. And every Sunday ends up being a pretty big deal. It's important for us to go ahead and maintain a regular schedule, but I'd like to go ahead and immediately apologize. We did not put out a podcast. And that is, and I'm going to go ahead and admit this, entirely my fault. So, why did that happen? Well, for those of you that don't know, I tend to struggle a little bit with my own with my own stuff, and it can be difficult for me to actually get motivation to do something some days. It's difficult. It was especially difficult that Sunday because I'd gotten up super early, sleep deprived, to go ahead and play in a charity game against Mikey from Hellstorm Wargaming. So it had been a bit of a day already, and I was at the end of my rope. So that's why we did not have a Sunday stream. And I figured that I might as well apologize to you, the listeners, and to the people that I actually, owe the fact that I'm actually here, an apology. So I'd like to go ahead and apologize. I am sorry that we were not here last Sunday. However, we are back. And the idea is that we're going to try to keep these going on Sundays. That's it. That's like the big announcement. I need to make sure that what's happening. So let's talk about some of our news. So 40K's been rocked by several things happening. For instance, what I've written on the docket here. We got Orcs on the Horizon coming out. The box set for the Beast Snagas and the Special Edition Orc Codex for 9th edition have been out for pre-order on the GW website, along with a very interesting queue system that reminds me of early World of Warcraft's queue system. It's made people very salty, but can't blame them. The new orcs do look really cool. Some of their rules look scary. Others look like a bit of a downgrade. But overall, it looks like there's a lot of play. And I'm very interested to see how new orcs do, particularly with the extra buffs they've got to even like the most basic weaponry with like choppas, toughness 5. I think there's some cool stuff, but I can't really talk about any of it because, one, I don't have the book, and two, nobody really has the book right now. So until we get the book, until we are sure we know it's in that book, and until I feel like I'm better educated on orcs, I don't really want to make any assumptions. Regardless. Orcs are coming. Orcs are coming, and Lod, aren't they coming? Season 8 has also started, and today we're going to go ahead and take a look at some of the stats that have been cropping up as a result, including some that make me very sad. For all my Tau players out there, my god, we are in trouble, aren't we? But yeah, we're going to go over some stats and everything as well, with Season 8 having started. There's also been a kerfuffle in real-life tabletop wargaming. What with AdMech coming out and now being consistently for a couple of weeks now, just getting incredible results, like Drukhari level results, even with Drukhari on the field. And there's a lot to be said about that. We want to get an expert, or at least I want to get an expert in AdMech in next week, since everything will have settled. And I'd like to talk in depth as to why AdMech are doing so well, and if that's translating it into our Season 8 stats or not. We'll have to see if the beginnings of that have started to crop up later on in the podcast. So yeah, AdMech are doing super well. Go figure. Additionally, Sisters got an FAQ at long last a month later, and it was really boring and dumb. Two extremely easy fixes that could have been done day one patch, both relating to the Paragon Warsuit in some way. The first one being that their reduce damage by 1 ability now has the additional clause to a minimum of 1. I don't think anybody should be surprised about that. Additionally, the little note that they mentioned where they talked about the models costing 240 points apiece, the unit now costs 240 points apiece. Wahoo! What a big change. Super cool. We were all surprised. But that's it. That's seriously it. And that includes some other jank in there that I discovered the other day when I played against Ash C, who is one of the best Sisters players on TTS on the planet, as far as I could tell. A third change. Thanks, Ember Gem, if you could go and just toss that in there. So, anyway, the thing that I realized is that their damage is also to a minimum of 1. Yeah, like, Ember Gem, that's like, yeah, okay. All the changes that would have been to a minimum of 1 and should have been to a minimum of 1, now say to a minimum of 1. Thank you, Ember Gem. And thank you, chat, for being awesome. But, yeah, like, literally, that's it. And there's still other jank in the codex, too. Other unknowns. For instance, can Retributors use a cherub on the same model twice during a shooting phase, or do they have to choose different models every time they use a cherub? They don't specify. They don't go over it. They don't even remotely talk about it. And on a personal level, why does their bodyguard rule specifically not state during the shooting phase for the Celestians? That drives me bananas. Just because largely I'm a Tau player and a Necron player and a Space Marines player that likes to shoot. So as a result, I'm in a situation where if there's anybody there, you can't overwatch them. And it's like, oh, okay. And there's some pretty crazy stuff that goes on with that. And I'm not sure if that's the same for bodyguard rules across the board, or if that's just a Sisters thing. Maybe chat can help me out there. But there's definitely a lot of questions that come up in the Sisters thing. And yeah, it'd be nice if we had some more talk about that eventually. But for right now, no dice. So yeah, it's a little bit silly. Okay, it's the same for all bodyguards, chat's telling me. Excellent stuff. Okay, great. No, that's just nuts then. Because Celestians are very difficult, they're cheap to put out, and they can make a huge blob of bodyguard rule for all of their incredible characters, including Morven Val. So, yeah, it's really strong. So just to let you know, yeah, the Sisters FAQ is out. No, it's not that big of a deal because we kind of guessed. So yeah, that's about it. That's all the news. Like, AdMech are ripping and tearing through the entire meta, IRL at least. The Orcs on the Horizon Season 8 has started, and Sisters got an FAQ, which could have been typed by somebody who had gone through middle school. That's it. As far as, like, big news goes. Now, as far as us news goes, it is worth mentioning that there are a couple of things that have been going on. One, if you haven't been taking a look at this channel, specifically twitch.tv/TTS Warhammer 40 and K, you are missing out, because the tutelage streams have been picking up, and every single one of those casters has been doing an excellent job teaching players how to get used to using Tabletop Simulator, getting used to playing the game Warhammer 40k 9th edition in general. The tutelage streams have been doing a good job, and I would like all of you to consider checking out the tutelage streams and lending them your eyeballs, lending them your ears, lending them your time, mostly so that we can give them feedback, but also to see if there's any other things you missed, to maybe help out the newer players, that kind of stuff. It's a bit of a group effort, and I think that the tutelage streams are an excellent way for the community to come together as a whole. I would seriously check out those. In addition, thanks to me being a slow man, they don't call me slow for nothing, we finally have a schedule for Alpha Casts. Wahoo! What this means is that if you are playing your Alpha League games, yes, you, that's right, you, sitting in the chair in front of your computer, or the couch in front of the computer, or whatever you're doing in front of your stuff, if you are currently watching this, you and the people that you play against could be on stream, live, casted by somebody with a decent amount of casting experience. If you wish, it's up to you. You need to go ahead and sign up, though. Please check in with Aggressively Memeing for the schedule about when you can go ahead and get your games scheduled in, so that way you can get them streamed here on this channel, TTS Warhammer 40k, Wednesdays and Thursdays, if I remember my scheduling correctly.
Carry the Emperor's wheel as your torch!
And we love the memes, don't we? Kool-Aid, thank you for the follow, as well to Ice Axe Effect and General Frey as well. Yeah, keep it up. Finally, because AlphaCast, is his own thing, and you guys will see it when it happens, let's talk about Alpha Pod for a minute. So Alpha Pod is the podcast where we talk about Alpha League. That's been the crux of the show since the dawn of time. And over the course of last season, myself and Arrowver and our guests ended up talking a lot about a variety of different things. It ended up starting to become a bit of a variety show. Even we talked, we spoke about about fairness. We spoke about how to focus on keeping your mood high. Like, we were talking about chapter tactics kind of things. And if Malice is in the chat at all, you might find that an appropriate little plug there to chapter tactics. But we are not supposed to, like, we talked about it a little bit between Orion and myself, our new tournament organizer as of season 8, and we spoke a little bit about that, about what the focus of Alpha Pod is supposed to be. And after a little bit of discussion, we came to the conclusion that Alpha Pod should be pretty much uniquely about Alpha League, a lot less about the variety show kind of stuff, where we don't really want to spend 4 hours doing what other podcasts also do. We want to be specific to a thing, keep our audience apprised of what's going on, and to kind of be the news show for the entire community about what's going on in Alpha League, about further tournaments that might be happening, further events, other streams, that kind of stuff. And that means there's going to be a little bit less of me in the sense that, like, these shows should be a lot shorter. Like, at 20 minutes in, I can already feel we're halfway through the episode. So these are going to be short episodes now. And I think that that's okay, and I think that that's for the better. But, big but, that depends on what you folks want. I like doing variety. I love to talk. I love the sound of my own voice. There's a reason why I'm doing this solo today. I'm doing it solo because I needed to kind of prove to myself I could also just do the stream on time every week. But in addition, I wanted to make sure that I could speak about all the stuff I like talking about. I would probably run a podcast on my own if I wasn't doing it for Alpha League at the rate this is going. So I love to talk. I love the sound of my own voice, and I like to talk about all kinds of stuff. I love talking about ideas. I love having a conversation about different ways people play the game, about what they think is fair or unfair, what they think is good or bad, and all that stuff. This is the kind of thing that I love to do. And so as a result, if you folks want there to either be another stream, if you folks want there to be more variety on this stream, or if you actually like the decision that we're going in, I would really, really appreciate it if you let me know. Either through DMs, talking to me in the chat here, or just by finding me on my own stuff. I mean, if you put Slowwolf into Google, you find a random band, but then you find me, and that shouldn't be too difficult. I'm also on the Discord server, so... hey, Streamlabs, do you mind plugging that Discord server one more time? You do? Okay, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste it, and I'll plug it myself. How about them apples? So, we've come this far. And yeah, that's the last big piece of news. I just want to let you guys know what's going on with Alpha Pod, why it's happening, and what we're likely to do going forward. So please keep in mind, follow this channel, hit the bell for notifications, so that way you guys get are notified when the Alpha League when the Alpha Tutelage shows go up, when the Alpha Cast goes up with the actual games for Alpha League, and especially in Season 8 where there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. So is it just Powerwolf but ballads? Man, Ambergem, I really don't know. It seems like they're a blues band of some kind. But yeah, anyway, that's that. Which brings us to analysis. Not just list analysis, but all the analysis. So forget what the docket says. List analysis and all the analysis. There we go. Look, that should change now on the screen. Yeah, this is probably going to be the part where we spend the majority of our time today. Because there are a lot of stats. And there's only one man talking. Which means that we're in the interesting position where I'm not only talking a lot, but I'm gonna have to talk at least enough that I can fill in the void of all the stats and everything. So to get things started, I want to go ahead and just show you guys what this all looks like. So we have an Excel spreadsheet here, which has just a bunch of lists. Every single list that's in Alpha League right now is going to be here on the screen, as you can see it. And it goes down. It goes down and down and down some more. It's a long, long list. That's not all of it, though. Hold on, and I made sure that everything's going. I got a chat up and running. Perfect. I can actually see everything without, ruining everything for everybody else. All of this is a long list of all the different paste bins we have access to, down to 140 people playing this. And there's a lot we can actually glean from this. So, for instance, let's take a look at some graphs, because I love graphs. Doesn't everybody? Everybody loves graphs, right? 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 So, yeah, let's take a look at this. As far as the most popular armies go right now, Adeptus Mechanicus are unsurprisingly right near the top. Custodes are very close, although that's always been the case with Alpha League in the 3 or 4 seasons I've seen it. And then we've got the Adeptus Sororitas and Death Guard following close behind. Necrons are in about the 5th place, and they're barely kind of keeping above the rest of people, where we have a fairly healthy Tyranids section. Drukhari have dipped significantly lower than I would have expected, honestly, for this. Oh, go on, you. There are a lot of people playing in Alpha League, and not many of them are playing Night Lords. Not many of them are playing Demons, unsurprisingly or surprisingly, depending on how you look at things. Grey Knights, Astra Militarum, or Thousand Suns. Like, there's one player for each of those. Even Tau has, 6 people playing it. One of them including me. And out of all these armies, the vast majority of them tend to be pure armies, as we can see along here. So I'm not sure if you guys saw the bar graph, but here's the bar graph showing you guys roughly what we're looking at in terms of numbers of players. And out of those, the majority of them are pure armies. There's not a whole ton of soup going on outside of Astra Militarum, which are being used in a few lists without, that are being souped in for other things. Dark Angels being souped in, so are the Blood Angels. I think the biggest soup culprit at this point are the Thousand Suns, where they're included in a variety of different detachments. Emperor's Children, which are just pure soup at the moment, apparently. And Drukhari, which mix really well with other Eldari options, which makes a good sense, which we can talk about later. All told, there are a little bit over half of the players that are playing Imperium. About a little under 7% are playing Hive Mind, so that's Tyranids, Genestealer Cults, that kind of stuff. Chaos is at 50%. All the Eldari, including Drukhari, are fitted into a little bit less than that. And then every other Xeno, so the Orcs, the Tau, and the Necrons all fill in that last little 12.1% there. It's interesting because with the AdMech and the Sisters in particular, this was expected. We knew, there's Imperium's a very popular super faction to be playing, but we can take a look at these bar graphs and, damn, dude, 12 people playing AdMech, 11 people playing that's Custodes, and 9 people playing both Sisters and Death Guard, which happen to be newer codexes. That's impressive. That's a lot of Sisters. It's a lot of AdMech. That's the chances of what you're walking into for the most part with all of these right now. So what does it mean pure and includes? Yeah, the Pants has got that covered. I didn't know you were allowed to combine factions. That confused me a little bit. Yeah. Long story short, because a bunch of these minor factions are from the same super faction in the fluff. So, for instance, the Ultramarines are potentially friendly with the Space Wolves, are potentially friendly with the Imperial Knights, the Astra Militarum, the Sororitas, because they're all a part of the Imperium. Since they all have that Imperium keyword, you can mix detachments. So you can have a detachment of Space Marines with a detachment of Adeptus Sororitas. You can have that also with a detachment of Astra Militarum, if you so wish, or AdMech even. But they've been recently incentivizing running pure armies, which means that they just run the one faction, Adeptus Mechanicus, for instance, or Necrons specifically. And in those cases, you also get another bonus. It's a pretty big deal. But what this is very different from previous seasons where soup was far more likely, especially after the nerfs that happened in January to Warp Time and other Chaos synergies. We see a drastic drop-off in soup for all of those people, really. I mean, we still have Thousand Suns up here, but, man, there's not a whole ton of Chaos that is, not souped, but I don't see any Chaos Space Marines really. it's impressive. Chaos is in a weird spot right now, despite their popularity amongst a lot of people. These graphs over here are interesting as well, but all told, the more easy to read graphs are these ones, the win-loss ones. So we're going to take a look at these before we get on to the lists. There are 5 players who all play each other, and whoever wins the most qualifies to knockout. Right! So I should probably explain more things. That's fair. So all of this, by the way, General Frey, who's in the chat right now, all of this is for Alpha League specifically. So this is like the competitive part of the Discord. The community and the Discord as a whole has whole other sections. There's a kill team section, there's a narrative campaign section, there's all this other stuff. There's just a section for people that want to play 40k. And a story, no ifs, ands, or buts. And that probably will appeal to you a little bit more, though I will absolutely advocate for playing an Alpha League anytime you get. So we're about a week into our games, and we've played 22.9% of our games, 23% of our games. That's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's not the third of our games that mathematically should be the case, but I'm not going to go ahead and berate anybody that hasn't played their games yet. I'm in that boat too. So, 22% of our games is still pretty good considering it's the beginning of it. There hasn't been the pressure of finish or die yet, and keep going, keep playing your games, folks. If you are in the pods, just keep playing. And also a section for learning the game. Ember Gem is correct. Ember Gem is correct. And there's also the tutelage streams, which would be worth your while to watch as well, Gray. Let's take a look at these. So Imperium. The Imperium super faction has 40 lists. So out of 140 people playing, 40 of those lists are all out of this super faction. Fair enough. Currently, they got a decent win-loss rate. 15 to 14. Makes sense. Imperial Soup has 2 lists in it. Look, we're gonna skip the lists. We're gonna skip the sections that have like 2-1 list, unless if it's particularly significant. The big story here are the Custodes and the Mechanicus and the Sororitas. These 3 here actually have a reasonable number of players and have already started to play quite a few of their games. The Sororitas currently are at 1 and 3. That's pretty rough. A 25% win rate is not where you expect to see the Sororitas at. That might be for a few reasons. My initial instinct is that people are playing Sororitas like they did in the previous Codex, in the previous season, which does not work as well as it used to. And you really do need to be flexing out those newer, some of the newer units. There's been a lot of... if you see a Sororitas list right now that has a bunch of Repentia and a bunch of Retributors, like, be on your guard, but that won't be as scary as a list that uses the new Celestants, or the, so the new Sacrosanct is what I meant to say, or Morven Val, or that doesn't take, better advantage.
My faith is my shield!
Oh, good, your faith is your shield. Thank you for following Artemis Frost. Cool name too, by the way. So yeah, that's what you'd expect out of Sororitas at the moment. And right now with this win-loss rate, I'm expecting this to change a lot. Like, this is the story of, like, maybe a couple bad games or people getting used to their codex. It's a new codex and it's complicated. So, it'll take time to get used to, for sure. Now, the Custodes, hugely popular. Like, I wasn't necessarily expecting Custodes to be this popular, but here they are, and they're doing well. 4 to 3, it's not like a crazy significant number of games, actually, from this particular faction. With 11 people, you're expecting to have 44 games by the end of it, and we're barely at the 7-game mark. So, 57% win rate so far. Keep going, Golden Boys. Maybe you can go ahead and take the gold this season. Who knows? And then we got the Mechanicus. The Mechanicus are rocking it right now. At 14 games, they've already played a fair number of their games for the season, which is good. We're expecting to have 48? Did I get that right? 4 times 12 is 48. Yep. We're expecting to have 48 games out of them total. They currently played 14, so they're about a quarter of the way through, a little bit more. And they are starting at a 65% win rate. 64.29 if you're being precise. But a 64.29 win rate, or 65% win rate, is like, that's scary. That's really good. This many games in already. Not everybody that's playing Adeptus Mechanicus right now has been playing Adeptus Mechanicus the whole time. Not every single one of them is a Mechanicus expert. I would imagine that there are a handful that are, but there are a few of the people in there that are winning, losing, playing in general that have picked up Adeptus Mechanicus because they're strong and because they would like to play the strong list. And lo and behold, they're doing pretty well. I'm still surprised they managed to get 5 losses, as the amount of salt on the internet has told me that apparently If you're playing Adeptus Mechanicus, you cannot lose, especially if you go first. And 5 losses is still 5 losses. It's more than 0. So, hey, maybe you can beat them. Who knows? Chat says, I'm trying to learn orcs. Our face is literally our shield. That's absolutely true. Alpha League always loves Banana Boys. Also true. We've seen that through several seasons now. That's their primary function. I'm trying to play Tau right now. Our shield are our shield drones. Those work. Sadly, they're not perfect. They do what they can, but they do have their own problems. Imagine there's at least one mirror match in there. They would have to. They went second 5 times. Nicely done, chat. I'm thrilled. That's good, actually. Okay, so moving on. The last thing that's really worth mentioning here, every single time, tends to be the Knights, because we're always curious to see how Knights are doing. The big toughness 8 gigantic monoliths that are the Imperium's biggest war machines that they have access to, anyway, on the 40k tabletop without being a joke. Or a complete joke in this case. The Imperial Knights do have 4 lists being played, but so far only I have 2 losses. No wins yet. But I have seen some Knight lists do well, so we'll have to see how this goes. Let's move on to the Adeptus Astartes, the Space Marines, the Emperor's finest? Question mark? Considering that there's also the Custodes and also the other people and the this and the that. The Adeptus Astartes are still here, though, and they're doing pretty well. 15-15-1, a perfect 50% win rate, and a draw, of all things. Currently, right now, Space Marines have been, at least with the big IRL tournaments and with a lot of the TTS tournaments, you tend to see a lot of Dreadnought lists if you are playing anything that has guns. So, usually Ultramarines and Deathwatch tend to be those big ones. And other types of Space Marines tend to like their Dreadnoughts too. Space Wolves in particular do very well with them. White Scars still tend to run 2 or 3 Contemptor Dreadnoughts with Volkite Contemptor cannons, so that way they can go Deca with Mortal Wounds. Taking a look at this, the biggest stories in terms of number of lists right now are the Space Wolves. They have 7 players. Now, there are a lot of players all told, but 7 players in the one faction here, and probably what people would argue is the weakest faction out of the Space Marines. One of them, I mean, there's a reason why Imperial Fists are not represented at all. It's because they are the weakest. But Space Wolves tend to be kind of like middling. They're not super popular right now for whatever reason. And they have 3 losses right now. Not great. Here's hoping that the Space Wolves kind of bring up the head of their pack and start knocking some people's heads. Because I know that they've got some pretty good rules and that they can do some pretty scary stuff. White Scars currently sitting there, and you know what? White Scars with 5 different lists in it. Same as Dark Angels, just a little bit above Blood Angels, Death Watch. White Scars still are scary, and they've gone 5-2. Like, they're sitting there at a 70% win rate as a difficult army to play. So that scares me. What I'm thinking is if you bump into a White Scars player right now in Alpha League, you're probably in for it. You need to be careful, as the people that are stuck to White Scars are probably diehard White Scars players. Chat says, my Iron Hands run 4 Redemptors and 2 Venerable Dreads, a Fire Raptor. Oh my god. Yep, that's an Iron Hands list, alright. Speaking of Iron Hands, gone 3-2, 60% win rate so far. Not exactly a hugely representative number of games, although out of a total of 16, hey, having 5 of them done is pretty good. Good job, Iron Hands. You're 1/3 of the way through. I'm interested to see how the Ultramarines are doing. There's 3 lists total. They've played 3 of their games. They're doing pretty well. 2 wins, 1 loss. And yeah, I mean, there's not much else to say. Space Marines are kind of bringing up the middle of the pack. They're doing what they do best. As much as they can. Blood Angels so far have no losses, which is interesting. Dark Angels have gone 50-50, which is odd. And my guess would be that the Dark Angels that are more mobile, the ones with more Raven Wing, are probably doing better than the Terminator ones, but you can never really tell in the pods. It's definitely a bit of a... It could be anything at this point, really. But yeah, Space Marines. They're doing 50-50. The majority of the faction currently is being brought up by the Ultramarines, and by the White Scars, and by the Blood Angels. As the season goes on, we'll probably see those numbers change a great deal. Moving right along, we got Chaos as a super faction. Now, Chaos got hit by some pretty big changes in January, which are in effect for Season 8 of Alpha League. And within the first week of the season, we can see some of the changes and some of the things that have happened. For instance, Chaos Soup, there are 7 lists that are running Chaos Soup, but they have a 40% win rate. Last season, that was the only super faction in Chaos that was really doing scary well. There were some Death Guard lists that were doing really well, and Death Guard at 9 lists with 6 wins, 2 losses so far under their belt. So 9 people are playing them. They have a total of 8 games between the 9 of them, so not even 1 per person yet. Wag your fingers, ladies and gentlemen, but, 8 games out of a total 36 isn't awful. And a draw. Like, they have a 72% win rate. That's pretty good. But Chaos Soup was wrecking it last season. Hugely. To the point where they got to the semifinals, and that was the only time they got knocked out. Shout out to EDT, aka E. Tompkin, one of our season 5 winner, if I remember correctly. Brought it up to the semifinals with a Warp Time Mortarian list. That list doesn't exist anymore. So Chaos Soup got hit hard by the fact that Chaos Sorcerers can no longer cast the Warp Time spell on everybody else. They can only target their own Legion with it, which means that they can only double move their own stuff. And as most people who've been playing competitively know, Chaos Space Marines are in a bit of a pickle. They do not have a good time right now unless you're playing Emperor's Children, and we have 0 representation for them. So we'll have to see what happens. But yeah, the story right now is that Death Guard are kind of keeping things floating, at least in Alpha League, and our Chaos Soup isn't doing super well, but they're at least trying. They're doing their best. There's not enough other games to really say anything, but big shout out to the Night Lords player for doing stuff as best as they can. What's chat saying right now? Let's see. I need to look more at the models. I tend to pick my armies about what I think is interesting and cool, and not just what is strong. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go ahead and bring up Pokemon. That's right, Pokemon. There is a great quote from one of the Pokemon Elite Four champions where people that are, like, really good at a game will play with what they like rather than what they, think is good or what they think is strong. And to a degree, that's true. But you also need to know what's, like, super efficient in those things. So, like, yes, Richard Siegler ended up doing super well with Tau. It's because he's really good at them. Ostensibly, I think he likes them. But you have to admit, it's also Richard Siegler playing Tau, and he played a very specific list that he's been fine-tuning for months, right? So when you're looking at your units, pick the stuff you like and try it out. See what works, see what doesn't. And as you start discovering like where the weak points of those units are, you start discovering what you probably ought to be bringing to more of your games, right? But that's a discussion for another time. Let's take a look at the Eldari. Represents sitting at a 57%, almost 58% win rate right now. 11 wins, 8 losses. And it's mostly Drukhari. Now, mind you, Harlequins are currently sitting on a 100% win rate with 1 game under their belt. Good job, guys. The Eldari Soup sitting at 2-4, 2 wins, 4 losses between the 5 players playing it. That's half the losses of the entire faction. Look, most of the time, if you're souping, you have to soup in something very specific. You have to bring in another faction that brings something specific that yours doesn't. Harlequins and Drukhari currently do sort of the same job at the moment. Super fast, hard-hitting, very killy kind of lists that are annoying to remove, right? They both do sort of the same job. They do it slightly differently, but not differently enough for me to really care anymore. And Drukhari have the newer codex. They arguably, I think, just do what Harlequins do, but better, in my opinion. And currently with 7 lists under their belt, with a 6-2 win rate, that's kind of showing. Like, that's actually a decent number of games. 8 games between 7 people. Like, I think that might be some of the best we've seen in terms of, like, ratio of games played to people playing it. That's a good start. That's a sign that I think Drukhari are probably making it to finals with at least 1, maybe 2 lists. We'll have to see. And then Craft Worlds. Pure Craft Worlds are still a thing, folks. Creeper did some really good showing with them in Season 7. So, Creeper in the chat, here's to you, babe. But Craft Worlds are in trouble at the moment. Like, they don't have the efficiency of Drukhari. They don't have the durability that they need to really be unique compared to them. And the slight points buffs that they got in Chapter Approved in January were not enough to really bring them, we're not enough to bring them further in that direction. As it stands right now, though, between 4 people playing them, they're still breaking 50-50, which is pretty good. We'll have to see how they go. I'm very curious, because I remember seeing Creeper's list, which was just a lot of super fast-moving tanks and heavy firepower, and it was so nice. But It didn't end up working all the way through. It did make it to the finals, however. So, like, not the finals, but it made it to, like, the final, like, elimination bracket. And I hope to see some more, like, interesting lists out of Craft Worlds. Maybe as we go through our list analysis. Who knows, right? So, overall, Eldari doing really well, which is different than what the Xenos are doing, the poor things. So, we got Tau and Necrons and Tyranids as our three most popular, with Orcs and Genestealer cults lacking behind. Look, the poor Orcs players, all three of you, my heart goes out to you. Because Season 8, you're going to be looking at a codex that you wish you could have been playing, and instead you're stuck playing the old one. To all of you, I salute you. There's not going to be much to say about any of your lists, because sadly they're all going to be bunk in about a week. Sorry. Genestealer cults are currently regarded as one of the worst factions in the game. Art of War ranked them right near the bottom. They are pretty rough off. However, they have a win under their belt. Yay! I'm not even sure if that's because it's a soup list or anything like that. If that's pure Genestealer cults, my hat to you. Seriously, like, well done. That's not an easy one to get. Chat asks, why are the Tau playing so badly? So let's skip over to Tau for a second. Tau have 6 players between them. I'm one of them. I'm going to go ahead and admit, I have played none of my games. Yet all of my brethren in the greater good are doing a good job so far playing their damn games. 10 games between 6 people, 5 people really means that everybody's played, on average, 2 games so far out of the people that have definitely played. Now, they're 3-7. Tau, as ranked by the Art of War team, at least, so this is the people with Richard Siegler, John Lennon, Nick Nanavati, Brad, I think, no, not Brad Chester, but like Brad Chester's good friends with them. A lot of people that have, that have been doing a lot of good, like a lot of competitive work within the 40k circles, they actually rank Tau Empire at like mid-tier. Mid-tier. Not bottom like they have been the rest of the entire season. Mid-tier. And the reason why they rank them mid-tier is very specifically because of the list that Richard Siegler has played. Now, there's a lot of... I would say that that's a controversial statement to say that they're mid-tier. I still think that Tau Empire as a whole aren't doing so great. Mid-tier says that you're doing, like, okay. I don't think so. But for Tau Empire, most of their units are kind of bad and are inefficient by today's standards. And especially now with the Sororitas Codex, the AdMech Codex, and now the Orc Codex that's coming out, that's going to change things drastically and might knock Tau down again fairly quickly. The reason why Tau have been doing well at all recently is because of the list that Richard Siegler piloted at the Atlantic City Open to a 7-1 record, which is incredible. He is the only Tau player I know of to have really done that kind of job. It was a list that revolved around many, many breachers and one particularly strong group of Crisis Bodyguards with missile pods everywhere. Just missile pods as far as you can see. And it does work. Missile pods are actually really effective in the meta that happened before AdMech began to exist. Now that AdMech exists, I'm not so sure. We'll have to see what happens with Tau Empire stuff. It's not so much that you play them badly, it's that it's hard to make a list for them that doesn't just sit in a particular pigeonhole. And like a lot of 8th edition codices, they're just not as efficient as the 9th edition codexes are that are out right now. They are supposed to be a shooting army, but get outshot by almost everything else that has a good gun line. Tyranids, Astra Militarum, AdMech, Sororitas, Space Marines, you name it. Tau Empire tend to get outshot by it. So, the people that are playing Tau Empire, you're playing hard mode. And the fact that we even have 3 wins, good job. I'm actually, like, big salute to me. As ranked by Richard Siegler, the pants says, you mean as Slowwolf. Yeah, that's what I meant. But the Art of War... when I say the Art of War, it's because John Lennon eventually acquiesced to what he said. But one of the big arguments they had was that the Tau Empire stuff was very specifically ranked where it was because Richard Siegler was playing the list. And I don't think that anybody who played him that day went, "Aw, man, I lost to Tau." I would imagine that out of the 7 people that lost to Richard Siegler that day, every single one of them would have gone, "Aw, man, I lost to Richard Siegler." I have a pretty big feeling that that's how that one worked out. But let's move on. I could talk about Tau all day. Let's not do that. Necrons, 5-5, doing a 50-50. So are Tyranids, right down the middle. And you know what? Honestly, kudos to both of those. Tyranids right now have a weird situation where their previous super list of the Demacarons got nerfed, not just in points, but in terms of meta. So they've been finding other ways to do the same job using Gene Stealers. Again, it's like they keep coming back. General Frey asks, didn't John Lennon make music? Not John Lennon, not that John Lennon. From now on, anytime that I talk about John Lennon on this podcast, it's going to be John Lennon, not that John Lennon. And then continue on with my speech. Anyway, Tyranids have been having a bit of a rough time trying to figure out their new place in the meta, but I do think that right now they're actually okay, if played correctly. They are definitely mid-tier. They're not top tier or anything, but they do have some very impressively strong stuff going on in some cases. Being able to tie up an entire AdMech gun line very quickly with stuff like Overran Gene Stealers, being able to put out a ridiculous amount of good out of line of sight firepower with the Hive Guard is really important to those lists as well. Exocrines still do a pretty good job. They have access to every phase of the game. Tyranids do have some stuff. It is definitely rough. You definitely need to build your list correctly. If you're tossing in gargoyles, what are you doing on a competitive level? But 5 and 5 does not surprise me too much. For Necrons, again, 5 and 5 does not surprise me too much. 8 lists, so 8 people playing them. They currently have 10 games between them, and having gone 50-50 is pretty good. Does that get them to the finals? I think at the rate this is going, no. If we see any Necrons in the finals, I'll be surprised. I think the vast majority of that field is going to be Drukhari, AdMech, Custodes, and a couple of Space Marines here and there. Probably some Dark Angels. Hey, review my list. yeah, okay, I can do that. John Lennon's new song, Sweet Tao of Mine, says L.D. Lanster. New album, Imagine Tao winning. Imagine all the people fighting for the greater good. Yoo-hoo. Anyway, look, I'll stop. It's pretty good, though. So yeah, that's the analysis. Right now, out of all the super factions, Eldari seem to be doing stellar. They are doing the best. But if you're looking at all the individual factions, White Scars are still killing it. Ultramarines are doing really, really well with their 3 games so far. How about we stick to the game with the factions that have a good number of games under their belt, huh? AdMech, White Scars are doing really well as well. Death Guard are doing exceptionally well. Drukhari are doing exceptionally well. And, big claps to all the Xenos, but we're still only going 50-50. So, yeah, right now, after the first week of Season 8, it looks like it's going to be a finals that's going to be developed between the Death Guard, a couple of Space Marines, and a lot of Golden Bananas and a lot of Mechanicus. That seems to be it. I expect the Sororitas to pick up, but we shall see. So that kind of does it for, our analysis of all that stuff. Now it's time to start looking at lists. Before we get looking at lists, I'm going to go ahead and quickly check which lists I have access to. But I want to go ahead and say that the goal of taking a look at the lists today is not to bully. It is not to, forcibly ask people to, stop sucking so much. The point of the lists is to try to actually get some, is to try to, look at ideas, analyze lists, learn to read a list, and then try to figure out what the list does as a group, as a community. And I think that that's kind of an important skill. It's an important skill to practice as best as you can. So, I've got 3 lists here. If you include the pants as suggestion. I love Tao, but reality hurts. Yeah, absolutely. What would Tao's music sound like? Tao music? I get the distinct feeling that I have an idea of what it'd sound like, but I hope it would be completely different. I would love it to actually be super alien compared to what we know. So let's take a look at our lists. Our first list here, if I can get my timeline all set up properly. Let me just make sure that this is correct. Yes. Okay, so our first list here was submitted to me by Arc off of the Discord, ARC. Arc's list here seems to be in a Space Marines Death Watch list, based off of a battalion detachment and nothing else. I think I know where this is going. Let's take a look. So, high legends units, kind of an important filter nowadays. There are a couple of extra relics. We got a captain here, Dominus Aegis, which gives a 5-up invuln save to all units within range of him, all core units, if I remember correctly. I don't remember what a Vigil Unmatched does off the top of my head, but he does have added up to the Codex to get the 5-up. The 5-up, I get a command point back, and Nowhere to Hide, which I don't necessarily remember what it does either, but I imagine it's a buff that ignores cover, if I had to guess, for core units that are shooting within a certain distance of him. We have a Lieutenant. The Lieutenant has a Chainsword, Mastercrafted Bolt Gun, and a Vorkin Pattern Auspicator, which means something. That's not necessarily all that important. We have a Primaris Technomarine, Hero of the Forge. This guy has the Tome of the Ectoclades and the Warden of the Ancients. Warden of the Ancients means that he's healing our vehicles better. Tome of the Ectoclades allows him to change the reroll ones targets for the Deathwatch. So for those of you that don't know, Deathwatch can target a type of units. So like troops, heavy support, fast attack, elites, that kind of thing. And then the entire army gets to reroll ones to wound against that choice. The Tome of the Ectoclades allows you to pick a second one, and people within range of that Techmarine will get that second one. Our troops, we have 2 Proteus kill teams. These are our firstborn. They have shotguns, they have lightning claws, they have storm shields. The basic gist here is that your Vanguard veterans with storm shields and lightning claws go ahead and do what Vanguard veterans do. Your Deathwatch veterans with the shotguns act as your action monkeys and are extremely cheap for what they do. Which happens to be a 2 wound, toughness 4, 3+ armor save dude with a shotgun. So they can advance and shoot, but more importantly, they can do actions and stay hidden, and they are obsec. Hilariously, so are the Vanguard veterans. We have 3 units of those. So 15 Vanguard veterans and then 15 Deathwatch people with shotguns. Elites-wise, we have 3 Redemptor Dreadnoughts. Big surprise there. Each of them has a Macroplasma Incinerator for that big gun, an Onslaught, Gatling Cannon in the other fist, and Fragstorm Grenade Launchers. I think that a lot of people are arguing over the Fragstorm Grenade Launchers, but this is just a lot of shooting. 2 Relic Contemptor Dreadnoughts with Volkite Culverins for that extra mortal wounds, and 1 Relic Contemptor Dreadnought with a melee weapon, a Stormbolter, and 1 more Twin Volkite Culverin. For a total of 2,000 points on the nose. The list is very obviously trying to do one thing and one thing only, is blow your opponent off the board. The Captain and the Primaris Techmarine for sure are hanging around the big Dreadnought, the 6 Dreadnought bubble. And if the Dreadnought so much as look at anything, it will probably die due to all the efficiency in rerolls, hit rolls, the +1s to hit, the other +1s to hit. Like, it's just a little bit insane. The amount of mortal wounds that the Volkite Culverins can put out on top of their incredibly good profile: 16 shots at strength 6, AP 0, 2 damage each, AP -1 if you're in Devastator Doctrine, which you can choose when that happens as Deathwatch. Yeah, that's all really good. On top of all the regular Deathwatch tricks, like, this is a strong list that has been largely, I guess, pioneered by John Lennon, not that John Lennon. When he was making an Ultramarines list that was very similar to this. But it is absolute value town. 100%. So, why has he gone for all Vanguard vets instead of mixing in bikes to get T5? That's actually a really good question. So, the Vanguard vets are fast. They are relatively tough. The Lightning Claws allow them to chew through stuff, like the Lucius pattern AdMech Vanguard veterans and stuff, because their transhuman stratagem does not care. Like, it doesn't matter. Lightning Claws just say, I reroll the wound anyway, which gives them a really good efficiency anyhow. It works well against bigger things, too. Anything that's toughness 7 or less tends to be threatened by all these Lightning Claws. They can pretend to be White Scars for a turn as well. So those Lightning Claws suddenly go up to 2 damage, and they can advance and charge. At least I think they go up to 2 damage, and they definitely can advance and charge, is the main thing. And that makes them very fast. They're still infantry. They can fly, so they go through walls. I like them a lot for what they do. You can also put them up in reserves and deep strike them for free after you've combat squatted them, which you can't do with bikes. So I like them a lot for that. The toughness 5 isn't as necessary, I don't think. So this is Ark's list. The Kiwi man, just so you know. If he brings a bike, he only has 4 Vanguard vets per unit, so less output. That's also true. There are also a bunch of people playing with variants of the same basic Deathwatch list. Yeah, the John Lennon list was roughly this. I think there were some definite changes. I think there were only supposed to be 2 Relic Contemptor Dreadnoughts in that list, so they had 145 points put into other things. But this is a simple list. If you wanted to go ahead and take this someplace, the list plays itself, really. Because the Dreadnoughts just sit in the middle, they don't die, they got a 5-up invulnerable save, -1 damage to be taken, they get healed by the Tech Marine if they're even remotely close to being hurt, and like everything rocks. So, yeah. Good list by Arc. It's probably nasty as hell. I don't know how my Tau list would even start to deal with this. I don't think it does, actually. So let's move right along. This list was brought to us by whatever this link is, and boy howdy, if I actually take a look at that link and it is Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up, I'm gonna lose my goddamn mind. This list was brought to me by, takes a look in the chat. This was the Pants. Thanks, Pants. I appreciate you. Oh, where should we send the list, by the way? You guys probably also saw the chat and everything. Send the list to me over in the Discord. You can find me in there. Just find Slowwolf and DM me specifically there, Basil. All right, let's take a look. So this list, it's a White Scars list. Wahoo! It seems to be a battalion, all that good stuff. Great. Moving right along. Corsair Khan. Corsair Khan's really, really good. Has a bunch of buffs for all of his friends. Tech Marine. Plume with the Planesrunner for that extra advance and charge. +1. Servo Arm. Rights of War to give OBSEC to core units nearby. We've got a few basic squads here. Bare Bones Assault Intercessors, Incursors, and another just regular Intercessor squad. Oh, none of this again. It's 3 Relic Contemptor Dreadnoughts with Twin Volkite Culverins. 2 of them have Cyclone Missile Launchers for that extra bit of DACA. We got Vanguard Veterans. We got Vanguard Veterans. We got Vanguard Veterans. And then we have 2 Landspeeder Storms. The entire point of this list is to have this very strong fire base here in the middle. With the Twin Volkite Culverins, they can absolutely do a lot of work very, very quickly. The Tech Marine gives all 3 of them OBSEC, so they are not only difficult to shift, but will hold the objectives over most things that get in combat with them. And then you've got 30 Vanguard Veterans. And let's see. 2 of the Sergeants have a Thunder Hammer, which becomes AP -3 strength damage 4 in the Assault Doctrine. And then one of them has a Power Fist, AP -4, damage 3, probably for points. Everything else has Lightning Claws. It's gross. And the Landspeeder Storms are there effectively just to get engaged on all fronts. And maybe nab objectives and stuff like that if you're exceptionally lucky against a bad player. This list does what it says on the tin. It moves into your face, hiding behind cover until the right time to jump. And when it jumps very hard with a core of extremely durable, difficult to shift, and more importantly, very lethal Vanguard Veterans. And if that wasn't enough, if you're trying to like just outshoot them, 3 Relic Contemptor Dreadnoughts that continuously heal all the time with Chapter Master rerolls nearby is no joke. I fully expect that this list can like outshoot a good chunk of lists that aren't careful about it, and then on top of that, outfight you hardcore. It's a good list. Like, there's not really a whole lot of weaknesses to it. The only thing I could say that might be a potential weakness of the list is that as far as OBSEC goes, you're relying entirely on Rights of War. Bad play with the Tech Marine could see him die, could see the Rights of War or not be useful, might be out of range of something when you don't need it to be, that kind of thing. And as a result, the Tech Marine is super central to how the list works. Without that Rights of War, the rest of the list kind of crumbles. The Vanguard Veterans do not have OBSEC. The Contemptor Dreadnoughts do not have OBSEC. In fact, the only thing that has OBSEC in the entire list naturally right now is the Tech Marine, plus core units within 6 inches, and then 15 other OBSEC models. OBSEC models with 2 wounds apiece. It's not a whole lot, honestly, and it can be dealt with. So that's maybe a weakness in the list, but you do have to get through 3 Relic Contemptor Dreadnoughts and 30 Vanguard Veterans to be able to get to this Tech Marine, so best of luck. It's a lot. It's almost too much. Let's move on to our last list for the day. This is a Tau Empire list by Pants. Thanks, Pants. Oh, jeez. So let's take a look at this thing. It's a patrol detachment. 1,999 points. It's hard to get 2,000 points on the nose with Tau sometimes, so I can't blame you. In our first patrol, it's a Farsight Enclaves detachment. Big surprise. It's using Veteran Cadre for probably a big Crisis Suit bomb. There it is down there. We got Commander Farsight. Big surprise. Commander Farsight is great for the ability to Monka twice. The reason why that's important, I'll explain in a moment. There's one strike team to get your requisite one batch of troops. And then not one, but 2 Crisis bombs. What? Honor. Oh my god. So, each of these crisis bombs comes with at least 15 drones. The top one, the non-veteran one, has 9 crisis suits. And these are just regular crisis suits, these ones. There are 9 regular crisis suits, 1 Chasfray. 3 of them are equipped with 2 Cyclic Ion Blasters and a shield generator, as well as the Crisis Iridium battle suit to give them a 2-up save. The rest of them, the other 6, are equipped with 3 Cyclic Ion Blasters. Cyclic Ion Blasters are a 3-shot assault gun that can be overcharged to be Strength 8, AP -1, D3 damage apiece. It's a lot of damage if it all works out according to plan. And accompanying this is a 16-man marker drone unit. Okay. Oh, I'm dying. Parents, why? We're gonna move on to the next bomb, which is almost the same thing, except for it comes with 15 shield drones instead of 16 Markolite drones, and it's got one of them that has an air-bursting fragmentation projector. Now, the reason why this is important is because of the relic that the extra, like, they have a relic called the reactive countermeasures. This means that this unit, as long as this model is alive, ignores AP -1 and AP -2.
Feel the might of the righteous.
Thanks for following Gemon and Go. Just passing by, leaving a follow to as many streams as I can since I have no money to play the game myself. Alright, well, have fun, dude. Take it easy, man. You can deep strike either crisis unit. Booyah, yep. You can be tabled by turn 1 if you really wanted to. You can only deep strike one of them, sadly. But, it's pretty fun. Sorry. Anyway, the rest of the guns in the entire thing are Cyclic Ion Blasters. These guys have been given the Veteran Cadre buff, which means that they have a ballistic skill of 3+ baseline. The goal here is at least obvious to me. You have one of the units stay on the field turn 1. Probably the reactive countermeasures one, since it's the harder one to remove. The other one stays on the ground and will probably benefit the most from being on the ground and using 2 CP to give them all the access to the Markolites against the unit of their choice. The big thing here is Commander Farsight. Commander Farsight can sit next to one of these units, can allow them to fall back and shoot 2 turns in a row, which is a lot more than you need with this kind of firepower. And for 1 CP, as long as he foregoes his high intensity plasma rifle shooting, which is, by the way, just 2 shots, strength 6, 7, 6, AP -3, 2 damage. It's 2 shots in rapid fire, I think. If he foregoes that shooting, then the entire Crisis Battlesuit unit can reroll all their wounds. It's easily one of the strongest stratagems that the Tau have access to. You want to build around it as much as you possibly can, I think. And if you don't, then you might be out of luck. The reason why I keep laughing at this list is because there's not enough assets. And the biggest weakness this thing has, look, it has firepower, absolutely, but the firepower is in 2 units, which are a lot easier to kill than this would initially suggest. Having a bunch of 2-up saves with a bunch of 4-up invulnerables is great, but they can be killed, they can be beaten, and more importantly, you don't have anything to sit on objectives or spread out or anything without making your your two biggest things, which are 800 and 900 points, by the way, respectively, without them being attackable by an entire army. Like, a unit of 9 crisis suits is very easy to see. Oh, my lord. The goal here is to make your opponent break down laughing so you win by default. Look, this is a funny list. I had a good laugh. I would play this exactly once before being mad. The other thing you could do is honestly spend the extra CP on getting an additional relic. It honestly, I would give these guys the reroll ones to hit and reroll ones to wound relic as well. So that way they don't even need Marker Light support, and just replace all of these drones with more shield drones. Just do your best. There are some fun things you can do with it, because the crisis battlesuits can, like, the battlesuits that are up in the air can drop down. You can spend 2 CP to give them +1 to hit. So you can effectively have these guys hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s the turn that they come down for 2 CP, which is a stupid amount of efficiency. That will kill everything in sight with these guys. In all likelihood, so long as they aren't ignoring AP1. And, yeah, that's really powerful. It's extremely powerful. But, you know, the amount of OBSEC you have is literally 5 models. 5 models. 5 of them. That's it. It's these 5. These 5 little T3 4-up save dudes, and then you're out of OBSEC. A unit of Nurglings tagging these guys, somehow, you know... You know, that could be a problem. If you're going up against Drakari and they got witches, it's the end of the world, because they can force you to stop. They can stop you from falling back. 5 of the Empire's finest fire warriors. You know what, Pants? Get out of here. Look, these have been your lists for this week. Unless if somebody's telling me else, one other list, please. Okay, we got 2 other lists. So, we're gonna take a look at a list by Basil, who was in the chat actually. This is a battalion detachment of Tau Empire. Hey! Okay. Farsight Enclaves. Cool. We know what that does. For those of you that don't know what that does, as long as you're within 12 inches, you count as having 1 more mark light than you normally would. So effectively, that just gives you reroll 1s to hit in the shooting phase, and then you get to reroll wound rolls of 1 for models in the shooting phase, so long as you're within 6 inches. So if you're getting real close, you can get some pretty good efficiency. You got Commander Farsight. God, this is formatted way too large. So you have Commander Farsight as one of your HQs. You have a commander in a Cold Star battlesuit with access to... Where are your dang weapons? Where are your dang weapons, sir? Oh my god, this is why we don't format it this way for 3 missile pods and an ATS. There we go, that's where it is, right at the top. Okay, cool. So that way you can zip around, toss out missiles, and be a nuisance all game long. Very cool. Troops-wise, we have a range of breachers. We have another squad of breachers. We have another squad of breachers. Each of these seems to be a squad of 5. Am I correct? 65 points, 65 points. Yeah. So squad of 5 with drones on 2 of them. No drones on the other 3 of them. There we go. So a total of 25 breachers. We got a Riptide. The Riptide has 2 fusion blasters, the relic ion gun, and a drone controller, as well as a velocity tracker. Hey, you know what? That's a pretty good loadout. Blows up tanks on a pretty regular basis. It's really strong. People like it. It is going to die to AdMech almost instantaneously, but it's a fun unit, and I love it to pieces. We have a big squad of Crisis Bodyguards, 653 points, so no joke here. They do have the reactive countermeasures in the Veteran Cadre to make them as durable as possible. The vast majority of it seems to be missile pods. Although one of them should have the air-bursting fragmentation projector somewhere in its list of stuff in order to make use of the reactive countermeasures. Here it is. Yeah, right there. Okay. The shot... Right, they're bodyguards. They're all shots raised. What am I talking about? So yeah, one of them has the air-bursting fragmentation projector. The rest of them are 2 missile pods and ATS. Cool. So that means that each one of those crisis suits is putting out 4 shots at strength 7, AP -2, D3 damage apiece, hitting on 3s or 2s, rerolling 1s, rerolling all their wound rolls. This makes it very hyper effective. We got a lot of shield. We got 3 shield drones, a marker light drone to go along with them. In fast attack, we have 1 Pathfinder team. with a grav inhibitor drone, which is the main reason why you take them. This reduces the charge of units that are too close to it. And Vespid Stingwings to do actions. That makes sense. They deep strike, they're small, they're fast, they fly, and they're still infantry. And then you have the Remora stealth drones, which are absolutely heroes as far as the Tau are concerned. They are flyer units. They can do the bombing strat for reasons that Farsight has access to. We'll see whether or not that sticks around. And then you have 2 Devilfish. Look, this is very much modeled after Richard Siegler's list. I don't think there's much here that's different, actually. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's almost exactly the same. The thing that might be different is I think he had 2 Vespid in his list somehow, but I digress. The list itself is very strong. It is capable of doing quite a lot. It is also, however, extremely weak to certain things. It is still a Tau list. You still need to have incredibly precise, very deliberate movement phases, and you need to know exactly what you're doing every turn. It will be strapped for CP if you're not careful, but it can do the work against Drukhari in particular. That's where it does very, very well right now, is into Drukhari matchups, because the missile pods are the perfect profile for dealing with them. The AP -1 or 2 punches through their transports, it punches through their basic armor, D3 damage is really strong, and dealing with this stuff, as long as you do your math ahead of time and figure out, your targeting protocols, your one actionable super unit, i.e. the Crisis Bomb, can do the majority of your work with everything else kind of there to support it or mop up if you needed to. That's the point of this list. Let's see what the chat is. Are there winning chances when you play Tau like the Guard? Yes, but there are a lot of people, me included, who play Tau lists that have shit units in them. So it depends. If you're playing this specifically, you need to have your best chances if you're playing as Tau is if you have Crisis and if you have Remoras. That's it, right? So Astra Militarum have been having some success with the heavy infantry lists, but man, oh man, do I never want to play that in my life. Tau infantry is so much less efficient than something like Skitarii, and they cost the same number of points, if not more. But it is what it is. Moving right along. Look, we can't spend all of our time on one list. Again, I could talk about Tau all day. Let's not actually, though. This last list is given to me by Ingram. This will be the last list that we're doing for today. It's called the Alpha Destroyer list. Okay. It is a Dynasty Necron list with a battalion of Necrons. They are Novak Dynasty. We have ourselves a couple of Crypto Thralls, which means that we probably have a couple of Cryptex, and we do. We have a Chronomancer here with a Prismatic Obfuscatron. The Prismatic Obfuscatron means that you can't... It's got old 8th edition character rule targeting, so if it's not the closest unit, you can't shoot it. End of story. It doesn't have to be close to anything. It has a Scorpic Lord. Scorpic Lord is equipped with the Veil of Darkness, so a Teleporty Relic and Enduring Will to give it -1 damage. And then we have a Technomancer, which has a Phylacteran Hive, which allows it to resurrect a non-core unit once per game. Canoptic Cloak. It has Thrall of the Silent King to increase the range of its auras. Okay. Which auras does a Technomancer have? We can talk about that later. Troops. In order to fill out the battalion, 10 Immortals, 10 Immortals, 5 Immortals. 25 Immortals. It's 25 toughness 5 bodies that can continuously resurrect. The Technomancer can keep bringing them back to life. Yeah, it's annoying. Fair enough. Elites, we have our Hexmark Destroyer with a relic with the Gauntlet of the Conflagrator. This is our little pitch hitter. It helps deal with hordes. A bunch of mortal wounds to big blobs is very, very handy. We have a squad of 10 Lich Guard with Sword and Board, Sword and Shield, which is also really, really good. Strength 6. AP -3 1 damage attacks that can become AP -4 on the turn that they charge. Yeah, it's a lot of attacks as well. It's 30 attacks baseline. And then we have some Scorpic Destroyers, 6 of them in one big blob. These guys are going to be difficult to shift. We have 6 Ophidian Destroyers in one big blob, and then 6 Locust Heavy Destroyers in 2 3-man blobs. So a take on a Destroyer list that is similar to the one we saw last season, actually. It's interesting. It's interesting. The idea of the list is very obvious. You don't have a ton of obs.
Forward to victory.
Jesus Christ! Thank you for following, Dead Anarchist. Anarchist. But yeah, the entire point of the list is this. You have your Chronomancer to help give a 5-up invulnerable save to something and give it reroll charges. Probably the Ophidians or the Scorpic Destroyers are your primary targets here, since those guys are your shock troops. You have your Technomancer who can revive one of them, which is pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Scorpic Lord is one of your bigger boosts to how this entire list works. It allows all the destroyers to reroll ones to wound, on top of their innate ability to reroll ones to hit. The Veil of Darkness allows him to pick up Immortals and Lich Guard and teleport around the battlefield with a +1 to charge. It's pretty sick. It's at this point where I would be like, I mean, if that was the goal, maybe give him Implacable Conqueror to work with those Lich Guard, because then you could get a rerollable 8-inch charge. Not a bad plan. The Technomancer here is probably the only thing that I'm like, somebody made a mistake. Like, I don't say that people make mistakes in list building very often. At least I hope I don't. But in this case, I don't think Swallow the Silent King does anything, and effectively has wasted a CP for a poor Technomancer. Because then what that Warlord trait does is increase the range of auras you have by 3 inches. And then it allows My Will Be Done, Adaptive Strategy, and the Lord's Will to be targeting things from 12 inches away. None of those are buffs that the Technomancer gets, as far as I know. So, okay, that is a... Okay, Ingram is in the chat. Ingram is in the chat, and he knows about the mistake. Okay, good. So, okay, I mean, you know what? You just play with a handicap. It's fine. What I like about this list, I like that the bodies that we're using are Immortals here. I think that Immortals are actually a little bit underrated for what they currently are able to do. The fact that they are toughness 5 with a 3-up save innately, and with access to any sort of runes, could be a 2-up save with reanimation protocols, makes them genuinely annoying. Additionally, they are okay in combat. They have 2 attacks apiece. In Novak, that's 2 attacks at AP -1, strength 4, not bad. And on the turn where you're using... Never mind, I was about to say, on the turn where you're using your command protocols, there are no command protocols in this list, which is both a plus and a minus. The minus is, you don't get access to them. The plus is, you don't have to worry about them, so screw it. So yeah, I like the Immortals for what they do. I like the 2 squads of 10 Gauss Blasters. That makes good use of stratagems. It's, you know, it's pretty typical. The AP is helpful. But I also like that the squad of 5 Immortals, which is probably going to hide in the back and do secondaries and zone out stuff and everything, has access to the Tesla Carbine, because those things are 24 inches full number of shots, where the Gauss Blasters have to be within 15 inches to do their maximum amount of damage. The Expert Destroyer here is really good because of the meta that we're currently in. There is a lot of AdMech in season 8 of Alpha League. The Gauntlet of the Conflagrator allows you to like do just a bunch of mortal wounds, which is super handy. The Lich Guard are very tough for what they do. 2-up save, 1-up save if they're in cover, with a 4-up invulnerable. They also have reanimation protocols. They're core, so the Technomancer can keep bringing them up as well. It's pretty gross. The big thing here is that we have 2 big units that want to be buffed: the Ophidians and the Scorpex. Right now, I'm a big fan of MSU squads or squads of 5. I'm not a huge fan of 6-man squads because they're harder to save. Like, they're harder to keep safe behind cover. And they're also just, for reasons, blastable at 6 models. You save yourself 35 points in your list and the ability, like the worry of having to worry about blast on your destroyers by just removing one of your models. Despite that, I think that the 6-man squad of destroyers here is difficult to remove. They do have a strat for -1 to wound them, which makes them very annoying. And you can give them a 5-up invulnerable save for the Chronomatron, so I like this a lot. The Ophidian destroyers would be about as durable because of the 5-up invulnerable save and, like, I mean, armor. What's that anyway, sometimes? The other big thing is that they're faster and hit way harder than the Scorpic destroyers. They don't have as much strength, but the sheer number of extra attacks that they get, especially with the exploding 6s on the Reap Blade, gives them a lot of offense. A lot of people are playing these as action monkeys right now because of the ability to teleport them in the middle of the fight. I think that they're really good as countercharge units. I think that they're very good as shock units, but I think they're much better as MSU, and in particular, they're really good in Novak. Anything using the Radiation Dynasty, because suddenly their strength 4 seems a lot stronger. And finally, I actually really am enjoying them as Zarakan, but I can talk about that another time if I go into an opinion piece. Finally, we have the Locust Destroyers, because you need to have something to deal with stuff at range. Locust Heavy Destroyers are fairly cheap now at 60 points a model, but they are still very much like cheap to destroy as well. 60 points for 1 shot at strength 10, AP -4, 3d3 damage is quite a lot, but it can be wiped out very easily. And the same can be said for the guys with the Eminent Exterminators. They have two very different jobs. One's there to get rid of tanks. The other one's there to get rid of hordes from range, clear screens, that kind of stuff. And both of them, unless if you play the angle game very carefully, are going to die to a stiff breeze. So be very careful about these. But these are strong. These are strong, and they can do the work. So be careful about those if you're going up against Ingram's list here. So, what are we going through here? Chat. Hexmark has been super clutch for winning my first 2 games. Yeah, I imagine so. That little guy actually does way more than what it says on the 10 for 75 points. I still think he's a little overcosted, but like his lackluster profile of 6 shots at strength 6, AP -1, 1 damage with his pistols. I mean, literally you spend 1 CP and suddenly he becomes one of the biggest tech pieces that Necrons have access to. I love him, for sure. We're talking about Power Rangers now for whatever reason in the chat. You can make a towel list full of the mechs and just name them after Gundams. Absolutely true. Good job, Billy Lannister. And the Hunter Strat. Yeah, the Hunter Strat's also really important for the Hexmark Destroyer, since he has the ability to come out of as a hunter of hyperspace and do all of that stuff. But we can talk about Necron specifically another time. Overall, I think I like the list. I'm really interested to see how it does. I don't think it's going to be able to beat some lists out there very easily, but I do like what it can do. Like anything that the Scorpex and the Ophidians touch is going to die. And then they'll probably die immediately afterwards. But you know, if you're playing very carefully, you might be able to pull it off. I think there's some really good stuff here. There's a lot to like, and that's it. My voice is finally starting to give out. It is finally time, I think, to actually start calling it a time. So we've done it like we do it on Glarg's YouTube channel, doing like they do on Glarg's YouTube but channel. I'm never doing that again. And we've done a bunch of analysis of different stats and everything. General Frey, I need to say something. I hear your podcast the first time now, and I'm loving it. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate all that, General Frey. Please be sure to tell other people that. But yeah, that's it for today's channel. That's it for today's podcast. Look, this has been a really good podcast, hasn't it? We talked a lot about stats. We talked a lot about stats. We talked a lot about stats. And honestly, that's kind of the way that we want it to be now. AlphaPod is going to be focusing mostly on those. And one last thing that Ingram pointed out is that the Hunter from Hyperspace strat actually allows the Hexmark Destroyer to destroy the small deep strike units that want to do the Rod secondary, retrieve Octarius data. Yes, I've been doing that to stop deploy scramblers for months. It's honestly super good. It's super good. So yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching, everybody. I hope you folks enjoyed yourselves. Before you go anywhere, I'd like to go ahead and just remind you that we have a YouTube channel. If you put TTS Warhammer 40K into YouTube, you'll be able to find us there. That is where you're going to find like all the VODs. It's where you're going to find all of our podcast episodes. And if you want to go ahead and see stuff that we've that we've had in the past, go ahead and check us out there, including previous episodes of AlphaPod, as well as some of my own game casts. So you can see me shout at people playing video games. What a time. You can go ahead and also check us out here, obviously on twitch.tv/TTS Warhammer 40K. Please make sure to follow. Please make sure to hit the bell for notifications, so that you guys know when we're doing all this stuff. If you don't, I mean, like, how are you going to figure it out? Oh, wait! The Discord! That's right. Pants, get on that with the Discord! So, yeah, the Discord is a place where you can go ahead and actually check out the entire community, where we've got everything going on from... well, I mean, we got casual games, we got learning games, we got competitive games, we got hyper-competitive games, we got, narrative games, we got all the games you could possibly want, we got all these mods, we got all this other stuff. Please check out the Discord, because if you don't, you're going to have a worse time. If you check out the Discord, you will have a much better time playing on Tabletop Simulator. I promise you this. Please do. It also allows you to get access to notifications on when we are streaming that don't rely on Twitch and their incredibly bad notification system. And he's going to mention this at some point, so here you go. Hey, you know what? thanks. I appreciate that, Pants. Check out the Patreon. TTS Warhammer 40k Patreon is there, so that way we can go ahead and actually start implementing prizing. We can start implementing all kinds of stuff and rewards and benefits to those of you that are currently watching. Right? If you're part of the community, this is a way to give back. If you've got the scratch, if you do not have the scratch, please take care of yourself. Do your very best. I'd like to go ahead and thank the recent subscriber whose name is not popping up on any of my things. I'm so sorry. But yeah, make sure to check out all of those different things. The Patreon is a way to give back to us. Subscribing to the channel and giving us bits is another way to give back to the community and to help keep it running and to, get it working. My name's Slowwolf. You can find me over at Twitter as @Slowwolf. You can find me on YouTube, where I occasionally upload things. You can also find me by rating Chris Helgren 100%, my dude, 100%. As I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted, you can go ahead and find me on Twitter. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Twitch as well, twitch.tv/Slowwolf, where I'll be, doing my own thing. I play games, Warhammer or otherwise. I'm currently playing in another invitational tournament, actually, called the Warp Wanderers Invitational, which is a tournament for charity. Currently losing. I've gone 1-1, though. I beat Sororitas. I lost to Sororitas. It's been a crazy time. But I'll be playing over there if you want to go ahead and see some semi-competitive Tau go up against some fun lists, against some other popular people, like John from Goonhammer. We've got Innes also from Goonhammer. Let me take a look at the list of things here. We got Auspex Tactics in here as well. Alex McDougall. We got Trevi. We've got all kinds of people in here. I know that we used to have Scary and stuff as well, but they had to drop out. Just because there just wasn't enough time. But it's a tournament for charity, so I'll be playing that as well. That's it. Thanks for watching. Hope you folks enjoyed yourselves. If you did, be sure to let me know, and I'll see you folks next Sunday for the Alpha Pod, the stream show. Bye for now. Also, before you go, stick around, because we're gonna go ahead and raid a good friend of ours. This is Chris Helgren. Invalid username. Oh, that's why. Yeah. Okay, cool. We're gonna go ahead and raid somebody who is well known to us. Why? Because Chris Helgren here, also known as Uze Style, has let's put it this way. He's won a lot of games where we did not expect him to. As far as I'm concerned, for Alpha League, he piloted the ideas of dreadnoughts being in such large numbers. He's the first person I saw who did well with them. So, with that said, we're going to go ahead and check that guy out as best as we possibly can. We're going to go ahead and have a good day. We're going to go ahead and be safe. If you have a chance to get a vaccine, get it. We'll see you folks next time. Bye!